Hi everybody, Spencer Presley here with a very special interview, or at least special to me because I'm here with... Oh man, I should have asked this before, but I'm here with Luc Bernard. If you had to give yourself a title, Luc, what would you give yourself? Because I feel like you wear a lot of hats.
Oh, well, basically at my company, I just call myself a co-founder and just a director, pretty much, because I don't, I don't like company titles, like CEO, CCO, all that, which I consider bullshit in general. I do, I just think it's a title just for someone to feel better about themselves. So just really co-founder and director, and pretty much at my company, we just don't have any executive titles. We just what we do on the games, pretty much we do.
Yeah, it's
And we
funny.
kind of switch along all the time too. Like a programmer, sometimes he has to make some art assets. Sometimes one of my artists, he might have to learn something brand new. So we just keep on changing basically daily. Like my community manager has also done writing for the games too. So we just kind of always change around. We do depending on what we need.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I first learned about Arcade Distillery through... I'm trying to think what it would have been. It would have actually been... I was thinking it was the Plague Road Kickstarter, but actually, I think it was when Conrad Zimmerman started working for you guys way back when.
Yeah, yeah, I remember.
So, like, I remember hearing about that, but actually, like, kind of diving more deep, because that Kickstarter for Plague Road was actually the first Kickstarter I ever backed.
Well, hopefully you weren't too disappointed.
No, I was not. I'm one of the I guess fanboys you would say of. I'm someone who has played, backed, and platinumed many of your guys' games and still keep coming back for more. So I've not been burned yet, even through various
Well,
Kickstarters.
well, we actually on the Kickstarter, I think we did good. I just think pretty much what happened was I think we released the game too soon on Plague Road. We did pretty much because we just tried to keep to that date. We did, and instead we should have just delayed it. Because with Kickstarters you have, either not half of them, but you always have a couple really loud people being like, "When the fuck is the game out? I want it fucking out now!" And it's like, "Well, you sure you want it out now? Because it's probably not even ready yet." But here you go. So that's why I've kind of taken more my time, like on things like Skull Pirates or on some other games, pretty much, because it's just like if you just rush it. I mean, most Kickstarter I've noticed, most Kickstarters always end up delaying it. They do. So for Plague Road, I don't think we even delayed it. I don't remember, but we
No,
did
that
delay.
one you guys were like. I think you delivered it in like 9 months, because I remember, yeah, like the physical copies ended up going out about like July of the next year.
Yeah, it went super quick, but then again, like some people just weren't happy with the. Well, Plague Road has actually done really well, but a lot of people say weren't happy with the game. They felt it could be more on this and that, and that's why it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Either you delay it, you make it better, you add in more content, or you stick to the timelines. And now I've kind of gone more the delay it route, pretty much. If I feel something isn't ready yet.
Yeah, I mean, just look at Death Tales, which you guys just launched a couple of days ago on Steam, and I was literally just before this watching the teaser trailer for Reaper back when it was a Vita exclusive, which, my gosh, feels like a lifetime ago.
That was a long time ago. What happened with DevTales? We actually it had been on pause for several years. It had because we were trying to figure. We just I think when we were first working on it, we made it too big, as in like we made it so complicated. We did so we just looking at this gigantic game where we're a small team where we're like fuck it, well, fuck, we never managed to finish this. So we actually made it simpler. We did, and we were able to finish it this year and get it out pretty much. So I think it's actually worked out too. It has because a lot of people have actually been enjoying it on Steam, and usually on Steam they kind of tear us apart. They do. They hate us on Steam usually. And right now, I think out of 20 reviews, we only have 2 negative, and I'm like, holy shit, like that's a big difference. So yeah, so actually, so some games again, sometimes you always have to wait for the right time until you're actually in the right headspace too. Like it's a weird thing.
Hmm.
It is how to explain because we do have lots of games planned, but some of them sometimes we just have to pause them. We do pretty much like the Plague Road sequel has gone through so many different versions. First it was Plague Hunters, this blockchain-based game which was using all the foundation of Plague Road. then we switched up to something else where we're like, okay, it's making an action game, and now it's ended up becoming like this 3D but 2D gameplay Metroidvania type of game. So it's just sometimes we just, you have to change something. You might think it's a good idea at first, and then a couple of months down the line and be like, eh. So that's why we do have lots of different projects. Like, we're never running out of ideas. We aren't. And, sometimes some projects, I may announce them a bit too early, and then they might only come out years later because I might have taken a pause on it to go focus on something else that makes more sense, like DevTales. Basically, DevTales, like, we could be focusing on all the console ports we could right now, but instead, we're jumping straight back on Skull Pilots we are after DevTales, pretty much. Because a lot of the technology that we made in DevTales, because we have our own custom engine, also has benefited Skull parts. Like, say for example, like DevTales before didn't run that great on Vita. Now it runs really well on Vita, and since it's the same engine, now we can finally have Skull Pilots run well on Vita, because Skull Pilots actually has a lot of things like the ship battles, for example, like in 3D. They have like 3D graphics, like for all the different ships and all things like that. It's a mismatch of everything. And there's lots of action going on. At one point, I was thinking, like, I don't know if this thing can run on Vita. So that's why we have to, jump back and forth sometimes between projects.
Now, you guys are still using the same engine from a past couple of games ago, the Prime engine, right?
Yeah, our own engine, pretty much. And
I have to say, I feel like that engine never gets enough of a shout out, because there are so many games, especially even nowadays on Vita, that will run, but a lot of them are just kind of either using a kind of patched together version of like Unity or Game Maker, and you guys have one of those few things of like, say what you will about a lot of your games for them and stuff that have been on Vita, like whether you like it or not, but I've always been amazed at how well they look, and for the most part always run very, very well.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. When I played DevTales, like, recently, I was like, on Vita, and I was like, holy shit, we didn't even have to remove shit. Like, we have things that, say, for example, you can't do HDR, like, on console and all those beautiful additional things, but we haven't had to reduce any of the graphical quality. Like, yeah, it doesn't run, let's say, 60 FPS, it runs at 30 FPS. Sometimes it has some dips and some more intense areas, but Vita's, like, 9 years old now, and that's the beauty of actually having a custom engine, is that basically if there's an error, we can tweak it, and we can also optimize it always way easier compared to Unity, where you kind of screwed you are pretty much with the Unity. Like, you're completely at immersive Unity if the thing works or not. And then when they update it, it may not work anymore. It's just that's why we just use our own custom engine pretty much for everything.
So kind of like taking a step back, just because I have always sort of wondered what the beginning sort of steps were for you. So your first game, at least that's like kind of well known that you released, was Eternity's Child. What was that kind of transitionary period from releasing that on Steam to the original version of Mecha Wars back on like iOS? Like, what was that like going from those two games?
Well, it's actually I did when I was basically super young. It was my first game, and I didn't quite know, what I was kind of doing that much. I didn't very much. So releasing that on Steam, and then it kind of got torn apart. It did pretty much, which is funny. The way it got kind of torn apart back in the day is that nowadays, the internet would have been like, oh my God, he got bullied, and this and that. And, so technically I think I did. But basically after his iPhone, which was funny because I went straight to a turn-based strategy, and then that one got critically acclaimed. So it was very funny.
Like if you look at the two, it's like so weird in terms of like Eternity's Child. It has almost more history in terms of its development than actually the reception. Whereas then you go into like Mecha Wars, and it was like, yeah, super like critically acclaimed, kind of like. I was never really big into mobile gaming, especially when it would have released. I would have still been in like high school and stuff, but
mobile gaming was great back in the day. It was, honestly, like when we were first doing mobile games on iPhone, it was so exciting back then because we're like, holy shit, we can do this, we can do that, we can bring console quality games to a phone, and it was awesome. Mobile gaming was, until free to play kind of came and and just disrupted that whole market. Like, it was okay to do paid games. Like, it was a great time back then, back in 2009, to do mobile games.
So I have to ask, this may seem like a really trite question, but I always wonder when I'm playing either Mecha Wars or War Theater. So, would you say you're more inspired by something like a Advance Wars, or are there like other things that kind of inspired those games for you? Because like the gameplay sort of is doing its own thing while also feeling like an homage to a lot of different other turn-based strategy games.
I would say it's Advance Wars and also Fire Emblem, pretty much, that those kind of really two games, pretty much. And we are really good at turn-based strategy games, but the reality is our action-based games just sell so much more than they have, pretty much. So I love the War Theater series, but it doesn't do the numbers that, say, a Plague Road did or Mecho Tales did, funny enough. Because even if, say, Mecho Tales got kind of... I mean, Mecho Tales was made in a few months. It was made super fucking quick. And that sold... I forgot. Let me think. I mean, it sold definitely over 100,000 copies on Switch. It did. It just sold really well, and most people like finished the game fully, which we noticed with the trophies. So it's a very weird thing how it's like critically it kind of got it did, but then the completion rate of that game is kind of crazy. It is. So it's a very weird.
Yeah, and it's not like one of those like beat it in a day like without really trying kind of games, because like I've platinumed it on Vita and PS4. Yeah, like it definitely, because if anyone's ever played Mecho Tales, you're controlling a character on a 2D plane while also controlling like a shooter at the same time, and they're two separate entities. So you kind of like, it's sort of like patting your head and like rubbing your belly, but as a platformer.
Yeah, and then you also have so we made that whole system, which is kind of like we made it. It's a hard game. It is. It's just very interesting how reception of things are, like how how a game could be maybe not torn apart. Mecho Tales just went with the reviews it did from the press, but yet it did really well in terms of people actually enjoying it. So it's a very weird thing. It's a bit like how Plague Road, kind of the same thing, where I think why it got a bit more of some people for Plague Road were, I think, hoping it'd be a lot more deeper, pretty much. And I think that's where some people got disappointed by it for that game. But again, Plague Road, it also, I mean, that's been our top selling game. It has. I'm hoping / thinking DevTales will probably become our top selling game in the end. It will, but it's just very interesting just to see how all things are, like how basically on console we just have done really well, but then like another example, like Mecho Tales has done crazy good on Xbox. It has. Meanwhile, War Theater has done on Xbox. It has. So it's very interesting now. Some games, will do extremely well on some platforms and not good on some others. Like it's an interesting thing.
Yeah. I guess kind of talking about consoles, I'm trying to piece together, so correct me if I'm wrong, would your guys' first sort of dip into console / handhelds, I guess, have been the PS Minis version of Mecha Wars?
Yeah, the PSP, yes, that was a great console. I would say it's a bit, maybe I'm going to get in trouble, I would say it's even better console than the Vita. I think
that's definitely not a thing that would get you in trouble. I feel like there's like two camps of it. You either love one way more than the other, or you respect them both equally. Because it's something I actually see quite a lot, because I'm in a lot of groups that are like PSP and Vita. Because if you like one, it's almost hard for you not to like the other system.
I mean, I like the Vita too. The problem with the Vita is that it got abandoned so quick. Like the PSP, the games which you play on the PSP, the fact that you can still play those Grand Theft Auto games, and there's so many 3D games, there's Silent Hill games, like if those games, you just update the resolution today and they'll still look great even on a Switch. They would. Even the God of War, like there's the PSP, they just really pushed that console to the limit. They did, and it was just a great. It's just such a great platform it was, and I mean the fact that you could play PS1 games on it. I mean it was crazy, and that's why I feel like the PlayStation TV should have been a lot bigger than what it was, because it had all this history. I mean, the fact that on your TV you could play all these games. You could.
Yeah, I actually remember one of my like favorite interviews with you, at least like out of the few that are on YouTube that you've ever done, was I think it was you were on Sup Holmes with Jonathan Holmes of Destructoid at the time. Might have been actually just afterwards, but
I think it was after when he was just doing his own show.
yeah, so it was like after the PSTV had just come out, like I think around PSX, and you were just talking about like how much you loved the system and stuff, and it was like you could like I mean you can always tell that like and just looking at your guys's list of titles and how much you guys are still supporting the Vita, but like how excited you were about kind of just having the PlayStation TV finally out in the West, and yeah, that like missed potential always sort of stung the most.
It had so much missed potential. I mean, I remember I had dinner once with Andrew House, who used to I think be the CEO of Sony Worldwide PlayStation, and I remember just, you know, his dinner with a bunch of other developers, and they were all being super nice to him, being like, yeah, you're great, PlayStation is great. And I looked at him, I was like, what the fuck happened to PSTV? You know, everyone was being nice to him, and then they were like, what the fuck is he saying to him? And he was super cool about it. He was just basically saying, like, yeah, it should have been a lot more than what it was. Yeah, not putting the controller in was a mistake. So many things were a mistake, pretty much. And he also agreed and thought it could have been so much more, but I think it's just Sony themselves, I mean, PS4 was just printing money, it was. So PSTV didn't really mean that much, you know, to the big corporate kind of Sony entity. I mean, I personally, because I was intending, I was like, you just need to bundle that thing out with a controller, offer PlayStation Now pretty much for a year, and try and get that market of people aren't too much, you know, a bit like what Xbox is doing now, you know, with their whole well,
it has a new name now, but yeah, it was like xCloud before. But yeah, like the whole thing with it though, which is always so funny talking about like Andrew House for it. I've done the same thing of talking to people I know who either still work or have worked at Sony before, and when you talk to them, it's like they work for a totally different company, because they're like, yeah, the Vita's great, and it's like, who are the people like if everyone at this company loved the system as much as they all say they do, like how did it get this bad along the way?
Well, they did love it, but it's just, you know, the big I think big corporate, maybe the board, I don't know what it is, just I mean, everyone who actually they all do love it. They did pretty much. Remember, Gio loved it. Like everyone really loved it. I mean, there's lots of. It's just I don't know what happened really all that much.
I always like to kind of think of it as like because if you think about it, it was like the tail end of a totally different era of PlayStation corporate. It was released just a shy over a year and a half before the PlayStation 4, and in that time, like they became such a just megalith company at the time, because PlayStation 3 level Sony, same with Vita, were very much like they were the cool indie house publisher. They were like, hey, we'll take a chance. You want us to release Puppeteer? We'll release Puppeteer. You want us to like release a whole bunch of indie stuff? Hey, we'll, because like there was that era where they were so like going to the PlayStation blog, I used to go there every day, even if it wasn't like me covering news, because I genuinely loved learning about all these new indie games. And not even getting into the topic of how many different kind of games are releasing now, it's been very apparent even after, like less so now that Greg Rice and them have been trying to kind of get back to indies on PlayStation. But like, yeah, over the past like almost 5 to 7 years, it's been like PlayStation has been very loud with their actions and not really their words, in terms of like, yeah, we don't really need indies anymore, which it sucks, because obviously they're in first place, but it's definitely burned a lot of bridges for people. I don't know like how you would say your relationship with PlayStation has kind of evolved or whatnot over the past couple of years.
I have so basically I was very good friends with one of my old account managers. And he eventually left over to go to EA, he did, and then went through a bunch of different account managers. Now I have a new one who's great, pretty much, but yeah, Sony they've changed, they have. Like, it's not so much the people who are the account managers, those things, the corporate side, as you notice, everyone noticed, they're really focusing, they're going a bit more the Nintendo route, you know, where it's like, look at our first party titles, look at our big first party titles, and not it's a bad thing, but it's just, you know, it's a different kind of route they've gone towards, while Xbox and Nintendo are becoming a bit more, hey, indies, come on over, look at all the things we've got. So, you know, it's kind of just shifted a bit, it has, you know, where before you used to be Nintendo used to suck for the indies. Now Nintendo's become really good for indies, so it's just, there's a balance that happens.
Mm-hmm.
It seems every couple years, and yeah, I mean, there is. It's just, PlayStation 4 has done insane numbers for them, so it's kind of like it works. It does the way they've been kind of going this route. It has it's working for them.
I'm so interested to see if they can actually keep that momentum up with PlayStation 5, because while I'm excited going into the next generation, if you look at all the stuff they've really shown, the only the only indie studio they've shown where I'm like, okay, this is a good sign that they're going back and working with them, is like the fact that we've seen Oddworld's game twice now gives me a lot of hope, because I know they, like Lauren and all of them, were very vocal about, yeah, PlayStation kind of just like broke up with us without actually doing it. Like they kind of just stopped caring about them, and it shows by like, hey, they released one game on PS4 and then they never released another game like up until what will be Soulstorm and stuff like that. So like I hope that Shuhei and Greg Rice can get back into that like golden era of like, hey, we still care about indies. We're not just going to be the AAA factory.
Well, I mean, Xbox definitely has cause that's the thing. I pre-ordered all the new consoles. I did pretty much, and I became most excited personally as a player for the new Xboxes. And as a player, I ended up liking playing on Xbox more, and it's not because they have better games, because Sony has all the good exclusives, on the PS4 era, but it's like just simple things like the cloud save, the fact that I can play downstairs, pretty much, let's say Assassin's Creed, and then I want to go up to my bedroom, and then I want to just play in bed. It just transfers my save automatically without me having to do a thing, and that's one thing which I don't like with the PlayStation 4, where I have to upload it. Then it has, to go to cloud, I have to download it, so I have to remember every time I do, and Xbox have been really good in terms of, if you buy a digital game with Xbox, it's not going away, and, because of how great they've been backwards compatibility they have, so that's why Xbox, I really trust them in terms of buying my games digitally. Sony, I think it's great that PS5 has PS4, but man, if they would have announced a PS3 backwards compatibility, because I mean, all the digital games I have on PS3, man, that would have been amazing. Mm-hmm. That would have. So, I mean, that's such a missed opportunity. I think the way Xbox is thinking, they're just thinking about, we just want people to play Xbox, no matter what platform, pretty much, if it's Xbox One or Xbox Series X. And so they have a different mentality compared to where I think Sony, they want to sell more PS5s. They don't just focus on the PS5. And so it's two different, each console nowadays, they all have their different kind of mentality. I don't think any of them are even competing against one another anymore.
No, yeah, like they're all, like, even Nintendo, like they are all catering to such a different thing now, which like it makes almost like that kind of like who's better at what console war conversation probably less boring, but from a consumer side, like it's just a win for everybody.
It depends what you want, pretty much. If you want the PlayStation exclusives, get a PlayStation. If you want to just get into hardcore gaming, get an Xbox. Game Pass, bam. You don't need to buy anything else for the rest of the year. Just have Game Pass, And Switch is you want handheld gaming, Nintendo games, and lots of cool indie games. Get a Switch. So they're all so different, and I think it's actually really great for the consumer, and even for each company. I mean, if you even look at Xbox's Twitter, they're just all like, they're all super positive, all super happy about everything. I mean, Xbox have been really great with indies too. Like, Xbox have become super friendly. They have, I mean, again, Sony, they're still becoming better compared to how they were before. Remember, they're great at one point, then they got a bit, now they're becoming better. Again, they are. But for the Vita, I mean, there's so many things that went to the downfall. Just the memory cards, like, those prices of those damn things, it's like, what's wrong with you guys? Like, why don't you just give us an SD card like Nintendo? And then they never put down the price of the damn thing.
No, yeah, it's...
Give it $100, pretty much. Give it $100. Keep the PlayStation Now app, which you had on it. You had so many things like opportunities. And guess what, too, right? The Vita was the Switch before the Switch. Like, I mean, I don't think I'm breaking it. Everyone's seen this, they have, pretty much. So I can just say what I've seen. But everyone's seen how there's some dev kits where, you can connect the Vita.
Oh yeah, how all the dev kits had HDMI out, which
Yeah.
which imagine if they had just kept that simple thing. I'm sure the PSTV would just have even had less sales, but just I know so many
They would have
people.
made the Switch.
Yeah, it's I know so many people who want dev kits just for the HDMI out.
Well, that's the thing. They made the Switch before the Switch. They did that. That's what's so insane with this whole thing. Like the Vita could have been the Switch.
Yeah, and the best part is they didn't even know it until the Switch came out. That's the saddest part about it all.
Yeah, I mean, again, they're doing super well. It's not like it's not like they really got a loss on anything. But yeah, I think if say for example Sony was like say Sega, and it was like the Dreamcast, I think they would have kept the Vita going. They would have, but I think it's just they make TVs, they make all these other things. When you're a big company like that, and your Vita isn't making that huge of numbers, you eventually move on. You do. I mean, it is what it is, and it's just also the digital sales of Vita are shit.
Oh yeah, what's so funny
shit.
is kind of going back to Death Tales. Is now that you guys have sort of come out there saying, hey, right now the only plan is for a physical only version, I find it so interesting how some people are taking there are different reactions I find so intriguing, because it's not a secret. Developers and publishers on Vita will tell you the worst, that system has the worst sales, and it's not because there's no one playing it. It's mostly the only way to make your money back on a game is by making it physically.
Yeah, and it's not. Yeah, the digital sales, they just aren't good, and it's just better to make it physical, because the Vita's digital store isn't all that great now. I've heard from some developers some of their games aren't showing up.
Oh my god, this whole year there was about 6+ months of the store just never updated, even though there were games coming out, and I'm like, as developers, that's got to be so heartbreaking, because it's already so hard to get any attention launching any game anytime. And then if just the platform you're on will only work if the person is searching the title, it's what can you even do at that point besides just hound Sony to fix it on their end, which thankfully they did.
Yeah, I mean that's just why we're just going for physical only, pretty much. I mean, we don't know how many copies. I'm asking the publisher to just when they launch it to do pre-orders and decide how many people actually want it. Pretty much, and yeah, it's I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I'm fine with it. I am, with just doing physicals for the Vita, because again, people get to keep it.
Well, I have to ask, because you, and I guess more specifically Arcade, is in a really interesting position as a developer and publisher. You all have worked with Limited Run, Red Art Games, and East Asia Soft now. And so, after having worked with a couple of different of them, what is, your takeaway been in terms of, how different each company is? Or, what's the experience been like?
Well,
what kind of comparing, starting out with Limited Run and Plague Road all the way now leading up to stuff like Skull Pirates and Death Tales?
Well, so I would say Red Art Games has been on PlayStation 4, so it's been super easy. It has pretty much with them. I'd recommend them, but PS4, so it's kind of its own market is. Limited Run. I think we worked with them at the beginning.
You guys were really, really early. What was funny too is, their cover variant is actually why I backed the Plague Road Kickstarter. Just because I was really into full setting stuff at the time, and unabashedly, I'm just such a sucker for any of your games when they do the stained glass art.
Yeah, we really that's kind of our thing. So we really, I would say, so Limited Run, worked with them. They were great, pretty much. But Limited Run, I think, it becomes so huge now. They have they're big company now. Well,
their size honestly is the only thing that always kind of, if I ever have to criticize them, it becomes it, because with the rate that they release stuff, as well as basically from a developer side, getting into it now, unless you've already got a foothold in, or if you're a really big company, is nigh to impossible. And then from a consumer side of when you order a game, you'll be lucky to get it within 9 months to 12. And it's just been every year, it's been getting longer and longer and longer, because they are still kind of working like a small company, even though they now have like over 30 employees. And it's one of those things of like they're doing a great job in terms of making these games physical, preserving them, pre-orders for everybody, and whatnot. But then at the same time, they have to kind of keep this pace of every week, new sale, new sale, new sale, new sale. And like someone like me, I was a full set collector of like I bought everything: soundtracks, games, merchandise, shirts, cards, whatnot. Like I owned everything from them up until like I think like 2018 or 2019, and I just got to a point where I was like, all right, I'm gonna do Vita, but I can't do anything else now, and I just had to stop full Monty.
Oh yeah, because they have so many things. Well, but I mean, in terms of those things taking long, I mean, I remember pretty much when we did the Indiegogo for War Theatre and Mecha Wars. So our original plan was pretty much to release those ourselves. They were right. Then East Asia Soft came to us and like saying us, hey, we can make them, and I was like, yeah, that sounds good because you know how to do this more. And so I was like, cool, do it. And then they basically they which also in exchange, you know, they also do their own copies for Play Asia. And then when we pretty much had those damn games, it's just, I mean, now I've finally managed to send them all out, but it was a nightmare, honestly, setting it up, figuring out how we do this, how we do that, pretty much. Like, it just took a while. It did have everything in place, so that's like I actually do have a lot of respect for these limited companies, because they're still operators, small companies, they're not like big publishers. And it's, oh God, it's a lot of work. And then you have people which have changed addresses, and then you're like, I just sent it out, you know, and then all they're randomly emailing me being like, it's stuck in customs. And I'm like, you just have to wait. And, you know, and sometimes, you know, on Twitter, you just lost my shit sometimes because some people just get so angry.
Oh my, yeah, I know.
Like,
I was always...
So,
I was always like so amazed of people kind of like complaining, because it's like, it's not like people didn't know how to contact you, and it's not like you were just like ignoring everybody. Like the thing was like, listen, I'm one guy, I'm basically doing all of the shipping by myself. Like the games are here, you just gotta wait.
Well, it was more like pretty much I was like, hey, I gave all you guys all out codes so you can still play the game. They're here, they're not going anywhere. And then once I managed to figure out everything to work well, coronavirus hit, and I was like, oh, fucking hell. Then that made it kind of harder, you know, to go to the post office. And then the US post office has also been a shit show too. It has recently, so it's just all these things kind of, you know, all happened at once. But now we finally got them all out, apart from I think 10 people which got their copies sent back. So I'm trying to contact them, you know, figure them out. Hey guys, can you let me know? And it's funny because sometimes some people are writing, since I did a recent post on Indiegogo saying, hey, whoever hasn't gotten their copy, please contact me. And some people have been contacting me, being like, I haven't gone Skull Parts yet. I'm like, it's not for Skull Parts. So
no, that's a Kickstarter. This is Indiegogo. Don't get them mixed up.
Yeah, so everyone kept on getting all those things mixed up. And it's very
I at least want to let you know that I, as an Indiegogo back for that, I appreciated three things like a lot. Number one, the big one, which I know some people were kind of mad about, which I think was sort of unfair, the fact that instead of them all being printed in the States, they were all printed by East Asia Soft. Me, as like a collector, I appreciated that so much more, because I've always...
No logo, right?
Yeah, no logo. Like, not having, like, just having a clean cover just made everything else look so much nicer. And I remember specifically kind of going back to Limited Run, Mecho Tales was the first Vita game for them that had to get the ESRB logo.
Yeah. I remember Doug called me up and he was like, hey, so you want to do this? I was like, yeah, let's just do it. Like, I think we had to do some things super quick on that. But, I mean, East Asia Soft, they're like a beast. They're a beast. Like, how can I explain? Like, Niels, the guy who runs it, right? He fucking does everything. Like, he will basically be like just for DevTales, we're like just saying, hey, we need to sign these trophies. These are some devs things, right? And like 5 minutes after he hasn't signed us, like he responds right away. And I was even talking with my account manager, I'm like, he's like, fucking hell, Niels does everything, and he's such a beast over at East Asia Soft. They've also been really good too. Like they're translated, like Plague Road to Japan.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how has that process been of working with them as a publisher in Asia? Like, has it been pretty painless on your guys' end?
I think East Asia Soft have been like, I'd say one of the best publishers I've ever worked with. Like, I'm always
so amazed that like they aren't more popular than they already are. Like, just alone for like some of the other stuff they do, because like, yeah, I hear so much from just like fans and stuff, but like especially developers, like the stuff you're saying with Niels and whatnot. I talk with Barry Johnson, who worked on like Habroxia and Twinbreaker, and he's working on Habroxia 2 right now, and is, as you know, making a Vita game right now. There's that looming deadline of when you have to get a game done, and like that's been really tough. But like he's been telling me, he's like, listen, the guys at Eshop are like, and you have to think about it as well. Not only are they really good at like getting back to you as a developer, like it's not like it's just the two of you. Like it's all these other people who are trying to get their Vita games made before the deadline, and so like I'm assuming times that by like 10 or 15.
Yeah, no, I mean it's just Niels has been. They've just been really good. They have like getting back things, getting things done quick, like sending us like royalty reports every month, and always paying on time. Like I've never seen a publisher like this. Pretty much, most publishers you kind of have to chase them down to get the money.
Was it really satisfying? I don't know if like how much like of like a physical media nerd you are for this, but how did it feel when you got Mecha Wars and War Theater in, and you saw that like it not only had the instruction manual but had like the CD? For me, the CD was the big one of like, I was like, oh, this is really cool.
I think we also did another thing. I think the cover where you can touch it, I think isn't a big feely or something. I forgot what it's called, but yeah, I mean Niels has done so many things like that. He just hits me up and he's like, hey, do you want to do that? I mean, they're really good at doing their limited editions. I just have nothing but really great things to say about East Asia Soft. Like right now we're trying to see like when we're going to release our next physical games, pretty much, because everything's kind of booked up until the end of the year. So we're looking at possibly early next year, and that's like I'm telling people like, hey, we want to try and do with Niels is pretty much if you could set up a pre-order, so then we know exactly how many people. So because it's to be limited, only physical. I want everybody who wants a copy to actually get one. Mm-hmm. So that's why I've been talking with him how we're going to do all those things. I mean, we put in because the War Theater sequel is also coming to Vita, and that one it's in QA right now for Vita over.
What is it? Blood of Winter, right?
Yeah, Blood of Winter, and Tales will be in QA like over the next days. It will, and then we know how. But we're already working like on the covers and everything for those games. So yeah, we're quite excited to see. How those games do. I just think Tales is going to do pretty well because I'm playing the Vita version, and I'm just like, holy shit, this is exactly like the PC version.
Yeah, the video you put out tonight on Twitter. I had like two takeaways of like, wow, it's interesting like seeing how much this game has changed, because actually I played the open beta you guys released forever ago, but like on top of it of like, I feel like, I don't know if like this is like kind of like off or whatever, but as I was looking, I was like, I feel like this is like your guys' most colorful games, and just like it, like all of your games, the art style really pops on the OLED screen, but especially with like Tales, because it uses like a lot of purples and like dark reds and like different hues.
Oh, that was on the LED one, so on the OLED it's like even better. Like it's going to be, I'm going to say, I think it's going to be one of the best looking Vita games ever on the platform. So that's what I think pretty much. I think it's going to be quite a hit in physical form, and I think there's going to be it's kind of be a good kind of one of the last Vita games. Like it's good send off for the platform, pretty much. Don't forget, this is what used to be a Vita exclusive with Sony. It did pretty much.
Yeah, what was it at E3 or PSX where you guys had a trailer actually playing at the Sony booth?
It was for both. We were at E3 also in 2014, 6 years ago, where it was kind of announced, and it went kind of on pause. It did for a bit while we were figuring it out.
Still though, that's got to be crazy, like just being at E3, and like it's different from like, hey, we're at a booth like PlayStation Experience, come check out the game, as opposed to everyone in this booth like at some point is going to see your game on like a screen.
Oh, well, it was awesome back in the day. Sony, they would fly us out places, they get us hotels, we were treated like kings, and we'd be like, this is awesome. And it used to be amazing kind of those shows back in the day. And we'd hang out between all developers. I remember the first years at E3, there's Axiom Verge right in front of me, pretty much. There was with Thomas, and meanwhile, I would be on the Vita booth side. I would, and it was just kind of fun. Like there was someone that spilled like I think a bunch of a bunch of stuff. It looked like vomit next to the Vita, and I took a photo, and I was making jokes like someone just played the game and they hated it that much. So we had so much fun. We did pretty much back all those things between indie developers. Like it really was so much fun. I mean, kind of like the good old days where you could go out and be around people.
Oh my God, yeah, socializing. Who remembers that?
Yeah, it was. I mean, that was just, it was so great. Pretty much all those old things. But again, as you notice, Sony after the E3s, after started focusing on the AAA games and this and that, which again, it's done well for them. It has. So I understand, where they've gone and going, but it was just so great to actually be at all those shows. And again, we really. It's a shame that maybe Dev Tales didn't launch sooner on Vita or that kind of thing, because we really did believe in this game being really kind of like a big thing for the Vita. But again, we had to wait until we felt we were going to make the game good enough, pretty much, until going back on it. And that's why it's only coming out, kind of the end of life of the Vita. But it's still come out at least, and that's one thing. All the games which we announced, right? They always will come out. I mean, Mecho Tales was a PSP game. It was announced like over 10 years ago too. We eventually, released that one. So all our games always do come out, and that's why sometimes I guess when something a random person on Kickstarter who's like, oh no, what the game is out, but it's cancelled. I'm like, have you been seeing the updates? Like, I just don't want to show everything, because it's just, you want me to show you the entire game and then you have nothing left to play.
I have a really weird Mecha Tales question, actually. I've always wondered, how did you, what was the conversation like with Mecho Tales? Because you guys were the only ones who had ever done this before, and even still to my knowledge, you made a like $10 more expensive edition for the physical one, just called the Developer Edition. Like, had a different cover art, and that was really it. How did that sort of talk come up? Because I remember being really, really active in limited run community at the time, and it was overwhelmingly negative for the most part, because they had already done a lot of cover variants at that point. But a lot of people were like, it's literally just more money for the same game in a different cover. But I took that as like, actually, I really appreciated it. It's like, hey, if you want to support the developer and just give them like a little bit of extra money, why not just like do this if you're going to be a collector anyway? So how did that really start?
I think we basically started limited run. we did, and if I remember, and I think that was a test, pretty much. And again, Mecho Tales did do well, but I think, that's one thing which I think I noticed. I think a lot of people in the limited run community didn't like us or something. Like,
no, it kind of became like a meme after Plague Road of like, oh look, it's like I think the joke for a really long time with like their Discord and the community on like the forums would be like, oh, like there were like worst games ever were like Plague Road or whatnot and stuff.
That's what I mean. The limited run community or said those things, worst games ever, and I think that's maybe why we just never did like another game together, because I think it's how can I say, maybe they felt like the community didn't really like our products, but they still bought them all.
Yeah, like they never really voted with their wallets, is the funny part, because it's like, for all the people who were dunking on Plague Road, like just look at all the other games. Like, people have still been buying and playing all of your other games, so clearly the vocal minority didn't really win out.
But I think it's probably why we haven't done any more kind of games together, because I think I don't know. I'm not saying it's officially that. I still have a good relationship with Doug. I think he's great, Douglas. But I think that's maybe why we didn't like. Because I remember when we launched Skull Pirates, we did ask them if they wanted to look after the Kickstarter after Plague Road, again, and they said no. So then East Asia Soft jumped on board. They did, and that's kind of what started our relationship with East Asia Soft. And that's kind of what happened, which is kind of a bit of a shame, because we were all at the beginning when everything was kind of all small, when we all were kind of first all grouped to kind of have all these kind of ideas of doing limited physical edition things, pretty much.
Sort of kind of going back with the Mecho games, with Mecho Wars on Sorry, Mecha Wars Desert Ash is the like remake for it. One of the little weird things I've always wondered, and especially you because of how much you're involved with like the art and stuff. What was there ever like an interest of actually keeping the original art assets from the original Mecha Wars? Because I remember one of my favorite parts about, I think it was like the launch trailer for Mecha Wars Desert Ashes was showing the original and then showing the new assets. And I always thought it would have been so cool if they was like kind of you see in those HD remasters where you can kind of toggle the original or the new drawings. Was that ever in the like thought process, or were you guys kind of like, let's stick with the new art?
Yeah, we just stuck with the new artists because it'd been more complicated to kind of do that. And again, it was, that's pretty much why we just, it would have been just more complicated.
I mean, yeah, at that point you were basically running like two games on top of each other at that point.
Yeah, so that's pretty much why we just stuck kind of with the new art we did. But yeah, I mean, that was a neat little remake to kind of do. I mean, now we've kind of, we were planning to do two kind of universes, the Mecha universe and the Plague universe, but now we've kind of put the Mecha universe not to rest, but we're just mostly focusing now on the Plague universe. We are pretty much just because there's so much more we can kind of do with that whole world, and the Mecha universe is a bit more weirder, not as say mainstream. I don't know if that's the right word. You know, it's not as say as appealing because again that's really funny about it. Even if Plague Road, there's vocal people like Pop Plague Road or something, it just sells so well. It does, like it still sells to this day, and I'm just kind of like, what is going on? You know, because it's just. I mean that's why I really wanted to make a sequel to it, but I think I did a mistake because I don't like doing sequels in general. I don't. I think after Plague Road and Mecho Tales, I probably should have started working on the sequel to Plague Road, but I just, as I was like, I'm going to make a pirate game, now another turn-based strategy, so that's kind of a bit my business mistake, when most people, like, if something does well, do a sequel. I just went in making lots of different IPs instead. So that's why, again, next year, pretty much, we'll be looking to, release and work on fully on the Plague Road sequel, pretty much.
It's really funny you brought up the timeline because I actually have from November of 2017 the Connected Universe blog post you did on the PlayStation blog, and I've been dying to ask you, what on earth happened to Manufactured Beauty?
That one is one of the games which we announced which we put on pause too, pretty much, because first we're looking to do it with a different engine, and then we're kind of like, now we're just going to make it with our own engine, so we'll wait until we all have all the 3D engine all working correctly. So Skull Parts is kind of the first game where you actually have 3D elements of it in the game, pretty much. And then basically the next Plague Road game will be fully 3D, it will. Then after we'll probably jump back onto that title.
Yeah, because I remember when you announced, I think it was it would have been Skull Pirates, War Theater, and Manufactured Beauty, all in that like one kind of fall. I remember it was like so striking to just see like a 3D platformer through the couple of screenshots you guys had ready.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much because again the next Plague game will be 2D gameplay but 3D graphics, and then we're kind of it's to slowly transition into everything rather than just jumping on something which brand new, which we haven't done before yet. So that's kind of like do it a bit step by step, very much. It's a bit like how, say for example, like for the online multiplayer, right? Like we created a new online peer-to-peer multiplayer system with Blood of Winter, and that is what's going to allow us to do the multiplayer for Skull Pirates, pretty much. So it's all those small things, how that's kind of how we operate. We just use games to kind of like test new engine implementations too.
As someone who I feel very confident in saying this has probably logged the most time online with Mecha Wars, War Theater, and the Blood of Winter, I greatly appreciated the changes of it just being real-time multiplayer. The turn-based is always fun in concept for it, but I feel like especially with
Yeah,
how
if you wait
active
for
the
people.
yeah, exactly. Like it was funny. I even got to the point of like I feel like my entire summer was me trying to get the platinum trophy in Mecha Wars, to the point of it was so much work for me that I've publicly put out a thing of like, hey, if you ever want the online trophies, please just come to me. I've done this so much, I will make it as easily as possible for you. And it's not even like, oh, it's not fun to play the game, but it's just because it's so hard to get that naturally, in terms of just like, if you just went and looked for a random game, let alone 5 or however many you need to like level up online, it's gonna be a lot less fun for you. But like I've always talked, whenever I talk to people I help get those online trophies for any of those games, everybody always says the same thing. It's like, oh, it's a shame more people don't play this online, because everybody like really loves the mechanics of them. Like no one's saying like, oh, I'm just playing this for the trophy, because trust me, Mecha Wars, War Theater, and less so with Blood of Theater, like they are not easy platinums by any stretch of the means.
Yeah, well, that's also why we kind of have removed online platinums. We have pretty much, online trophies, because we've just been like, for some people it's kind of hard. It is, or what happens if, say, imagine someone buys a game 5 years from now, there's no one online. So that's why we all trophies now, we've made them where you can all acquire them offline. You can pretty much. So that's what I think. I mean, War Theater also have a platinum trophy on the Vita version too. It will, and it's all because that's the thing pretty much. For our last Vita games, we will not be doing online on them. We won't pretty much, because since we're there won't be as many players. There won't Death Tales. It's limited physical, so no online.
I'm assuming as well. By the way, Death Tales probably single player only, even on like PSTV.
Yeah. We're sticking to all those things. We are to deliver more like a better single player experience.
Yeah, I mean, better to get the game out for more people to enjoy than like get a game in with every original feature as planned.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's like our original idea even for Skull Pirates was the PS Vita version would have cross-play with the PS4 version, but now we're making the PS Vita version single player. And that's just because of dev reasons, and because it becomes a lot more complicated. It does, and we decided to more like, how lots of people actually cancel their Vita versions on Kickstarter. So rather than doing anything like that, we just like, okay, let's just not have the online. Let's just make sure all the rest really works well, and really is fun. For Vita, pretty much.
So that explains actually, because you mentioned recently, kind of talking about your roadmap a little bit, why the Vita version of Skull Pirates would come out first, and then the PC beta. So if it's just single player, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, because basically, so Vita version has to come out first because of the timeline of the physicals, pretty much. That's why. We had to focus first on the Vita version. We did. So the Vita version is coming out first, and then once we're done with that, we give everyone an invite to the PC beta version so they can play it, in the meantime. And the later console versions will come out next year, where they have additional things like the multiplayer. It's just like, I'm sure people will be okay, because I don't think there's a big multiplayer online community on Vita, so I'm sure I might get some backlash, because there's always backlash there.
Yeah, like there'll always be those people for it, but like the games that have their like multiplayer lobbies, they're very much like the people still playing Call of Duty or Killzone are like that's all they're going to play. They're not going to jump over to whatever the new multiplayer stuff comes out for. Like I'm very confident in telling you, at least from like someone who talks to a lot of like PlayStation Vita fans in the community, having the game, let alone physical, just be done and complete in some way, shape, or form as a single player thing will be more appreciated than if it was digital only, came out with everything else at launch with multiplayer.
Yeah, that's basically what I mean. I think, and I think in all cases, people want to play more multiplayer games. I don't know. Me personally, when I play multiplayer games, it's more on the Xbox. It is pretty much. And then if I want to play, because on my Switch, I don't really play that many multiplayer games on the handheld. But maybe that's just me. But it's just focusing on just really getting Skull Parts to really run really well on Vita, because again, it has a lot of 3D elements in the game now. It does. So we had to focus on having that really run well, because again, like the ship battles, ship battles, like we're currently inserting in a boss where it's this big whale, and this whale is all in 3D. It is, so we're all having, it's a brand new thing. It's kind of like, it's nearly a shame because we've made the Vita version of our engine so good now. It's kind of really a shame that the Vita's ending. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, exactly. Because like you say, how each game you just keep polishing it and polishing it. It's like, but like it's going to be at its best at the end of its lifespan for you guys, at least where it makes financial sense. So that's got to be kind of like a double-edged sword as you're releasing your last final titles. I have to say, like as a huge War Theater fan, I'm super excited that Blood of Winter is still happening on Vita. I had kind of just assumed it quietly. The idea just didn't have like enough resonance with it. So I'm glad you guys are still pursuing that.
Yeah, no, we're still basically pursuing. I mean, it's in QA right now. It is pretty much, and it runs really well, so that's good. It runs like War Theater, like the first one.
So without the online, just curious, because I know that one was basically like the sort of free to play starter version. Would this Vita version, I'm guessing, come with all the DLC included?
Everything, yeah.
All right, that's awesome. And I mean, honestly, for stuff like War Theater and Mecha Wars, I'm guessing even this newest War Theater, it still has the offline, like, if you wanted to play against an AI multiplayer, or if you wanted to just pass it back and forth. Because I actually did that a couple of times.
Yeah, it'll still have that. And it also has, I'm trying to think what else. But also what's really cool in Blood of Winter, it also has the original War Theater in it too. It does, like, with some updated gameplay things. But the thing is, I'm actually probably to go and call it War Theater 2 because it is a sequel, but since we didn't put a number in it, some people might be confused. They might. So that's I'm quite excited for that one to come out too. I am. I mean, we are hoping we still get to. I mean, we will see if we ever do the next Plague Road game. I mean, the Plague sequel. On digital Vita, I can't give any promises. We might.
It would have to be like when you see those physical book Kickstarter platforms where it's like, okay, the physical, the digital version's done. We're only gonna put it through cert if all of you give us your money now. That's the only way we can guarantee it.
We might, as when Skull Pirates is done, like we might maybe just launch a Kickstarter and be like, we'd do it if you guys all. I mean, because that was basically the thing for War Theater and Mecha Wars, why we ran the Indiegogo, was to be like, hey, we'd do it if you guys basically give it kind of in advance. And it was funny how people were thinking like, I think it raised 30 grand, and they were thinking like, oh, you've taken all the money and you're spending on I know what, and it's like, no, Vita games are more expensive than you guys realize. That I don't think in the end, like with the physicals, I don't even know if we even really turned a profit on those games. I don't, or it was very tiny. It was because I can't even remember. So making physicals, they are actually quite they can be quite expensive. The cheapest physicals to make are like, I'd say the PlayStation 4 ones, because you only have to pay the ESRB like $3,000, right? And then if you only do 1,000,
only $3,000. Which like that sentence alone should put into perspective how expensive a physical can be. Only that, just for the rating, for that thing everyone hates.
And then I think it's $6,000. It's at least 10 grand it is, or something, 10 or 15 grand to at least print out 1,000 copies of PlayStation 4 physical. That's how come part of me has been like, because the problem is, again, we set up this whole system where now we actually have everything working, how we know how to send out games. We do. And it's kind of like, which we're doing with the Skull Pirates thing. So I'm like, oh god, that's going to be interesting, especially if we're a bit late. People are probably going to yell at us. So I'm really anticipating that. Not at all. So that's like, part of me has been kind of like wondering, like, hey, should we release DevTales when the game is out on PS4 on physical? Yes or no? We would try and think about all these different things. Because again, what I really do like about physical copies is that no matter what happens digitally, they're always there. I mean, that's why we did War Theater with Red Art games, because we wanted to make sure that some of these games can be there forever. They can.
Now I know East Asia Soft and stuff, everything is still up in the air for a whole lot of stuff, especially with release timing. But at least for your guys, in terms of like whether stuff is kind of how far things are along in development or QA and cert, right now with the Vita versions of those last three games, Death Tales, War Theater, and Skull Pirates, what are you kind of expecting to sort of be like first, second, and last?
I expect, it's up to you say yourself, but I expect probably War Theater sequel first, maybe Death Tales, just because we submitted it first. Maybe they might do it another way. But then definitely Skull Pirates last. Skull Pirates will be the last East Asia Soft PS Vita physical it will.
I had no idea how far along War Theater was, so actually I'm kind of surprised. I almost it'd be cool to. I know they try to sort of theme their release like sellings of the week, so I think like that'd be a really easy sell of like how when both Mecha Wars and the original War Theater went on sale at the same time.
I mean, that I was kind of hoping we could do like a Halloween pre-order, but then I was told pretty much, hey, it's a bit late to do that now. Cause,
What do you mean? We got like 25 something days left.
yeah, because it's kind of like, hey, we have to place this inside the factories and this and that, and we have so many Vita games right now. So yeah, I was a bit late for that.
At the very least, you guys could at least like just be like, all right, we'll give like a teaser image on like Halloween. They'll give like the most real, because yeah, Death Tales at least specifically, Death Tales like is a almost like a tailor-made like good Halloween night game.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was hoping. But again, I was kind of a bit late on that, but I know East Asia Soft, I think they like to announce their games right when they're ready for pre-order.
Yeah, they're always very smart about it, of like announce it basically a week or less than a week before it goes on sale, and that way you have that fervor, because yeah, so many other companies will get into that thing of like, hey, here's this game we're going to come out with. And like a great example, going back to Limited Run have games that they announced before Plague Road that have still not come out physically.
Which ones are those?
I guess the most current one I'm thinking of is like Nuclear Throne, which is even probably more up in the air now, considering I'm trying to think of Rami's old studio's name. Vlambeer. Now that Vlambeer is kind of disbanded, I'm sure all of that stuff's even more kind of up in the air.
Yeah. I'm wondering why it always takes like.
The rumor for the longest time was because Vlambeer's games always came out pretty quickly on consoles and handheld, but they never got patched. So the rumor was, oh, we'll finally fix it, because Rami's big thing, especially with all of his Vita games, all of Vlambeer's Vita titles always came out with a broken trophy list, which people were always very mad about. So he was always like, a patch is coming, a patch is coming, a patch is coming. And now that they've announced Vlambeer's closing, it's like, people are just like, I don't think that patch is coming 6 years after Luftrausers.
Oh, yeah, I didn't. Yeah, cause I remember Skullgirls and was other things. I remember that taking a while.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know if that ever came out actually.
Skullgirls did, yeah. Skullgirls was like, I think, yeah, there are only two really long waits. Well, I say that. They used to, like, a 12-month wait used to be insane, and now that's kind of the norm. But, like, the big ones were, yeah, Skullgirls as well as Celeste. Celeste was a big one.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily Limited Run's fault. I think it's because Limited Run, all they need is like the package, like some dev thing, right? And then they can just print it. They can. I think it's more like it must be something more on the developer side. We have to make it.
Yeah, because like back when you guys would have been doing Plague Road and Mecho Tales, by the time the games went on sale, the orders were already in at Sony. You guys had already pretty much done everything on Limited Run end, whereas nowadays, especially because they view themselves as having such a large pre-order thing, they don't even start making orders at Sony until the pre-order period is done. So that kind of eases, or I think it's given them and gotten them in a couple of situations where the developer might kind of like, oh, I've got some time, and then there are so many cases, especially this year, of, oh, well, we figured we wait a little longer because we have a couple more patches before we submit to Sony, like, the final package for, like, the disc and stuff, and it's just been a lot of situations of, like, waiting, pushback.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, that is very true. But that's the thing. We always made sure that even for War Theater as Red Art games, it was just a release build pretty much that we did with them. So I mean that's why I don't think Skull Park's PS4 version it won't be out at the same time as the Vita, that's for sure, because we actually want to wait until we're kind of like done with that PS4 one, because we might release it and some people might be like, hey, we want some more shit in it or something, and we're kind of going to wait until just the PS4 version, pretty much. I mean, that's also why War Theater 2 didn't have a Vita version earlier in the year, because wait until we had all the DLC released for it. So that's kind of where we're kind of at too. So I kind of get that, but I don't think we've launched any pre-orders. I mean, apart from Kickstarters and Indiegogos, which I assume most of the time that's what people kind of expect.
Yeah.
But
now that you've sort of gotten, I mean, geez, I can't. It's so crazy to think of how long ago the Kickstarter was for Skull Pirates. Now that you've kind of reflected on sort of taking what you've learned from Plague Road in terms of take your time, like this is a game that people gave a lot of money to, so there's no real reason outside of obviously they want to get their game as soon as possible, but people are like, because you've still been communicating and updating them, it's like they like you want to give people the best game possible that they paid for. Are you sort of glad now in retrospect that, like, let's say for example you did sign up Skull Pirates to limited run, that there might have been more of a thing of, okay, well, hey, we're a North American company, if you want the Vita version you gotta have this game ready 2 years ago?
yeah, I mean that was the advantage with end up with these stages off, but we still have to basically make sure that we release it on time, so we still are up against the clock in terms of Skull Pirates. We are the Vita version, so it's not exactly as easiest one yet. It isn't. Yeah, I mean, I wish we had more time, but it's just, Sony's closing it down, sadly. Yeah, which is super annoying.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, it's like, I'm amazed it almost made it to a decade. It's crazy kind of how long so many developers have been so passionate for it, even though, like you mentioned, it's not a sales powerhouse like it once was. But, I mean, at least I just want to say, at least for me personally, I super appreciate how much your guys' company has not only been supporting it from stuff like the original Desert Ashes all the way up to stuff like Skull Pirates. So, like, I just want to, like, thank you and all the guys and gals like you work with. Like, it's super, super appreciated.
I mean, who knows? Who knows? Maybe we might, release the next Plague title as a Vita digital. Who knows? We have to see, how the Vita is next year. We will, pretty much. But I mean, I still love this title. I mean, it's a shame that the next Plague title probably won't be on it. Because that game, I mean, since we're switching everything to 3D, like it's looking really good so far. Kind of behind the scenes. So we're quite excited about that one too. Just because there's to get a better reception, from the critics to the next Plague game, because again, a lot of people like that world, they do. So yeah, it's quite exciting to see like where we're kind of all heading, and again, like Death Tales actually getting a good reception from the people that hate us the most, usually Steam users, is kind of like, we're happy. We are pretty much, but it's still a lot to, a lot of work and to still be done on all these things. Like like Skull Pirates. I just don't want to spoil everything for everyone. After so many updates, you're like, well, what else can I show apart from the entire game?
Yeah, it's especially tough like when you do a lot of like art updates and assets of just like, if you just keep showing concept art, it's a good way of not spoiling people too much, but then at the same time there's always going to be the naysayers who are like, oh, well, are you guys still just drawing concept art for it? It's like, well, yeah, you still want it to be a surprise.
Because that's really the big thing. It is like, I don't want people to just, I've always seen the entire game over there. So we'll see. I mean, again, it's first to focus on getting the PS Vita version submitted for release next year, and getting people to beta on PC this year, pretty much, for that game, and then hearing what people think of it, feedback, and all those things, and kind of going from there. But yeah, I anticipate basically PS Vita version would release next year. We're just making sure to get it submitted this year.
Okay. Now, I know I have done a really, really bad job as a host at keeping us to our original end time, so I would just like to first apologize for that, Luke.
Oh, no problem.
Completely lost track of time here.
I mean, I was late to this call, I was, so...
But if you have time, I have one last question, just because this one I've always thought was so interesting. To my knowledge, I'm pretty sure you were, or at least whoever came up with this idea, the first company to do the how cheap can we discount our game on Switch to get it into the top sellers.
Yeah.
Now, how did that idea first come up, and how cheeky do you look at the eShop now when you see people now pushing it 99 cents for Plague Road and Mecho Tales we thought was crazy, and now looking at people being 9 cents, 1 cent, how cheap possible can we make it? How do you feel about that, sort of looking back on it? Because I remember when you started that, thinking it was oh, that's so brilliant, because in the early days of the Switch and stuff, I know so many people who played Plague Road just because it was it looks cool and it's $1. What do I have to lose?
Well, the thing, I was it's this kind of smart idea, 99 cent, people wouldn't get it very much, but I think 99 cent should be kind of the what do you call it, the max, the ones that setting at 10 cents. I'm guys, you're not making any money off that.
I mean, just going back to Limited Run, look at them, they all the time put Revenge of the Bird King on there for a penny.
Yeah, I think that's very, very low. 99 cents is still very low, but again, we were bringing in thousands of copies a day, so that's actually fine. It was, and plus it did help when you're an indie, and there's so many games out there, and you're well, I don't have a big marketing budget, so let's just do that pretty much. And so that, I think we did kind of help start that trend. That's the thing, we've helped start a lot. We've been part of a lot of trends, which sometimes after the trends go too far, it's not our kind of fault or anything. It's not us making decisions, but again, I saw the other day, if someone has a game on sale for 7 cents, and I'm that's really too low, man. I don't know why Nintendo even allows that. I think the 99 cents was kind of max where it should be.
Because you get to that question of now it's okay, we don't want to turn the eShop into the App Store. The App Store's big problem was it was a race to the bottom until we had to make everything free, and you just can't do that on consoles. I mean, obviously, yes, you can, and people are trying to do it. Basically, it's a workaround to get easier attention on the eShop, which is already hard enough as it is. But it's just one of those things of you're right. 90, I feel as well. 99 cents should be as low as you can do it, because then when you get to the point of when you're selling these games, no matter if it took someone a month or a year to make, you're just making the eShop ecosystem as a whole look bad, saying here, it's a penny, we're just giving it away, please just buy this.
I mean, so I don't think there'd be that much more free-to-play games. Nintendo's becoming really strict on their whole free-to-play policy.
Yeah, you guys got in there early though with Kitten Squad.
Yeah, but now it's War Theater didn't get approved. They're very particular. They are now very much for their free-to-play games. So I think people, that's too low, because again, that developer can't survive. They're barely making anything if they're selling it for 7 cents. So 99 cents I think was a good number, and of course, we kind of pulled an App Store idea and it worked, and we're okay, let's do it more then. But I think 99 cents is kind of the max that you should go low as, pretty much. Because again, it just becomes... But I don't think that trend will happen. I don't, because if you look at the ones which are really setting their games so cheap, is smaller games. It's not big games, it isn't, or even medium-sized games.
It's funny you say that. I was going to be there is a AAA company who has copied you, right? Every year now, I think in the past 2+ years, NBA 2K, whatever year it is, the year before's version, the month before the new one comes out, they will just set it to $1 or $2, and it's just this game was $60 a year ago, and you're just telling the world this game is useless now. Here it is for $1. And it's just so funny to like think like companies like Take-Two are like doing stuff that like are like following trends that like you started on the Switch.
Yeah, well, it's happened with it's been actually a lot of things, like the whole, like the trend with charity-based games. That's also something which we started, you know, with Vita we did pretty much, and now there's like a lot of like charity, you know, a lot of charity DLC, which is great actually, which I'm seeing now pop up everywhere. And we kind of started that with Parade on PS4, like for that 2 years ago for the hurricane relief. So I think it's great. Actually, the whole charity thing, I encourage it. I think this is fantastic. That's really great how lots of developers are doing things similar to that. But yeah, we've just always noticed that we've always kind of done things quite ahead, if it's good or bad, you know, and then kind of like a lot of people do copy the thing, but not much we can really do. I mean, I don't want to copyright everything very much my idea, you know, because I clearly got inspiration from Advanced Wars, so I can't be like, I only do come up with original things. It's not true. But yeah, I mean, I encourage all the charity things. I think just for the developers' sake, actually, I don't care if they're selling the stuff at 7 cents. I just think for the developers' sake, like, sell your thing more. Like, don't, you know, because you're not going to make a living, you poor guys, if you do it that low.
Just curious, have you guys ever thought about doing it on other platforms as well with your other handheld stuff? Like, one of the few examples I'm thinking of that actually kind of worked on the Vita was this developer really did a lot of licensed stuff. I don't think they're around anymore. It's called Little Orbits. It was this way forward Adventure Time game on the Vita, and it was just like Link to the Past. It was always a digital only in the West. It never really got like a lot of good reception, but they were about to lose the licensing rights for publishing it. And so a month before it was about to get delisted, I remember they set it to $1. And I think I ended up asking somebody to way forward, and they said the sales went from maybe one a month to like almost like 10 to 15,000, which was just crazy because even on the Vita, people were like, "Hey, it's a pretty decent game on here for $1. Why not try it?"
Well, we've done that. Mecho Tales, pretty much since this whole game, it is. Basically listed it all at 99 cents on PlayStation, and it sells pretty decently every month on PlayStation now. So that's what we've done. We didn't run any sales for Mecho Tales, so we just put it at that price. Because you know, it's an older game now. It is. So I was like, I don't really care. You know, like we'll have more people kind of play it, pretty much. And I do think $20 was quite expensive when you first put it out.
I mean, I think that was also in that era of like it was cross-buy and cross-save, right? Well, not cross-save, but it was cross-buy.
It was it was cross-buy. There's lots of other cool things with it. I mean, nowadays, like DevTales, you notice we're selling it for like $10. You know, Skull Parts will be $20 because not just called a Kickstarter, but because it'd be like a bigger game. It will be, so it makes more sense. Mm-hmm. It does. So yeah, but no, we tried it on PlayStation. We have. I mean, I definitely don't want to do this for DevTales or Skull Parts or any of those kind of games. I don't. Pretty much, it's just we're kind of okay doing it with the Plague Road game because you know it was an older game. It was, and you know allowed us to get a bunch of new players, which we might not have gotten because you know we don't have a big marketing team or campaign. You know. But I don't think it's something which we want to kind of continue. It is for Plague Road, Mecho Tales, it's cool, but kind of keep it like, you know, not do too much.
No, yeah,
like
exactly.
Basically, not do that for DevTales. I don't want people to be waiting around and be like, wait until it's 99 cents. I'm like, no, you know, so.
Which is important. That's like, that is showing that you know your games have value, and that way, like, yeah, you don't want to set that precedent.
Yeah, I mean, Plague Road, it was a port, it was older pretty much, so that's why I'm cool with basically going on sale often I am.
Well, Luke, thank you so much for coming on and chatting. I learned so much and have even more stuff to look forward to from Arcade Distillery. If you would like people to follow you, the Plague Universe, or Arcade Distillery online, where would you like them to find you?
Just Twitter.
Okay.
Twitter is where I respond to everyone pretty much. They try finding me anywhere else, they probably won't get a hold of me. Because, for example, when people try and get a hold of me on the Indiegogo site, I don't know how to access my messages on there, which sounds really dumb, but I don't. So that's why. That's why I'll ask them to talk to me on Twitter if they need anything.
All right, and yeah, all the links for Twitter and stuff will be in the basically channel description below, so everyone will be able to find that if they would like to contact you or whatnot. But yeah, so thank you everybody for listening, and thank you, Luke, for sitting down and talking with me for so long.
Okay, sounds good. Have a good rest of your day.